You see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good morning, everybody. I know we have a lot of veterans in this group, and we thank you for your service. I've been wanting to get this particular group in to talk to us about what they do and so forth. It's honoring veteran service and so forth. I'm going to let this gentleman talk more about it and give you the history behind their group and what they do, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just going to turn it straight over to Mr. George Pry. He is with the Honor Flight Pittsburgh, and he'll let you know what it's all about and so forth and so on. So George.
First and foremost, thank you for inviting me in. We'll see if you ever choose to do that again after you listen to me for a few minutes. But one of the things I found in life, I am not a veteran. I have a father who was a Korean War veteran. I have a father-in-law who was a Vietnam veteran, a grandfather-in-law who was a World War II veteran who fought literally through the breakout division in the Battle of Bulge, and his dad was a World War I veteran. They've all since passed, and people often ask us, how did we get involved in this? And it's just because of the people we've been surrounded with. So every volunteer that I know has said they've had a family member who was a veteran who served, and they just want to give back to every other veteran as a thank you. It's that simple. That's how it all began. Now, I do it myself. I walk in, Home Depot or Lowe's, and I see a veteran wearing a hat, and I walk up and I thank them. And most of you, if you're a veteran, you're welcome, and then you walk away from me thinking, why is this guy thanking me other than I wear a hat? Does he have any idea what I really experienced? And the answer to that is no, I don't. I never experienced it. But I stumbled across a story one day that talked about this. And it was a veteran who often got thanked. And a younger teenage type gentleman come up to him with his mom and thanked him for his service. And the guy's like, well, thanks, but I don't know if you really understand what you're saying. And it took the mother and the teenager back a little bit, like, what's this guy mean? And he's like, well, I hear it all the time. When you hear the same thing all the time, you start to think, does it really mean something to me? And so he talked a little bit to the family, but he said, the most important thing you can do for us to thank me as a veteran is to live a life worth defending. And we've taken this a little further. On our trips, we give our veterans a coin that says it on the back. We ask them to share that with people. As somebody comes up, thank them, go, or they're having a chance to talk to their son, their grandson, granddaughter, whatever, to tell them a little bit of a story, because that is the biggest goal we have, is to pass along what you've done, to make sure that the next generation understands and experiences it. So, we gave we give our veterans, when they go on a trip, this coin, and we ask them to sit down with a family member or a friend or a neighbor, whoever's interested, go ahead and share a little story of whatever you can. And just remind them that the biggest way they can thank you is living that life worth defending. So that is the most simple way to describe what we do and why we do it. Now you're saying, well, you didn't really tell us what you do. Well, our goal is to thank you, to thank the veterans of our community, and to try and make sure that they all get the chance to do something that they may not have otherwise had, which is to go to Washington, D.C. and see the memorials that were built in their honor. I know it sounds simple. A lot of VFWs, American Legions, have taken bus trips down to go down and see the different memorials. And that's awesome. We support it. We often donate to other organizations doing similar things. We try and take it a step further. So our mission is truly to recognize our American war veterans for their sacrifices and achievements. We take them to D.C., we get to see the different memorials, and then we try and spend some time making sure that they get to interact with other people. So my next question to you is, what would you do for a $2 bill? One of the neatest things about getting involved in this is you get to talk to a lot of people with a lot of different experiences. And I'll tell you, the more I'm there, the more I feel uneducated. I'll even use the word stupid sometimes, because I think I understand, and then I talk to another veteran who has a different perspective, a different story, and I realize, wow, how did I ever think this way, after this? Our very first trip, we tried to organize this, tried promoting it, bought ads in the Butler Eagle, because I live up closer to Butler, and we got a whopping 8 veterans agree to go with us. And of those, I think 2 wanted to go, and the rest were drug in by their buddies saying, hey, we got to try and help this guy out. He's trying something. Let's try and help him. When we were done, there was a Korean veteran from the Evans City area. At the end of the day, thanked me, hands me a $2 bill. I thought, well, thank you. And I'm like, $2 isn't really going to help support this, but, I appreciate the offer. And, and that was a thought that went through my mind, but he goes, you know why I handed you a $2 bill? No idea, sir, but thank you. Thank you for your donation. And he goes, my first paycheck in Korea was $2. He goes, so I'm over there fighting in a war, and I'm handed a paycheck, $2. Wow, that hit home to me. I understand numbers mean different things at different times in life, but $2? That's what you got paid to be away from your family overseas, no matter what was going on. So here's 3 gentlemen. The 2 to the right, well, the one to your left, I should say, he has served in multiple conflicts, but these 3 were on our first trip. He served in Korea and Vietnam. The gentleman in the middle is the one that handed me the $2 bill. He was a Korean veteran. The gentleman on the right was a Vietnam veteran. So they went through us in the first trip. And as I stated, our mission is to get them down there to see their memorials, to have that chance to see the memorial that our grateful nation built for them. They're provided at no cost. We make sure we do all the fundraising. We have no paid employees. We are 100% volunteer. We have a lot of great people. The VFW, if you're ever up near, I think it's called, it's the Butler VFW. They just built a new facility up there. That several of the nurses that work there as their job donate their time on every trip. And we usually have 2 nurses at minimum on each bus that are designed just to be there to help us out in case anything goes wrong. I can say we've had a lot of great luck with that, and until our last trip, nothing has ever gone wrong other than somebody tripping or something. But last time we had a gentleman that wasn't feeling good and we had to take him to the hospital. But it's nice to have that kind of support where you have these nurses that are willing to give up their Saturday, spend a Saturday to be with us to make sure you get anybody that needs medications have it, or if they have any kind of concerns, take care of it. But we make sure that we get you down there for free, that there's no cost to you, no food cost, nothing other than the long day, because we start our day bright and early, and our goal is to get you down there and back in a nice, safe manner, and hopefully have a day that's been very rewarding. So I just updated this statistic with numbers from 2019, because unfortunately we all know 2020, that shut down our operations all of 20. most of 21. We did take a trip in the fall of 21. But so far, the numbers for 22 haven't been released yet. So in the year 2019, we transported as a total organization, not just the Pittsburgh branch, but the national organization, 23,000 veterans, of which you had the breakdown there of the different World War II, Korean, Vietnam veterans, and others. Now, the others can be anybody that has served, like whether it was in Afghanistan or Desert Shield or any of the different conflicts we've had. We go by priority. Needless to say, our World War II vets, as of the last 21, as of the statistics from 21, we had 234 World War II vets dying per day. So our goal is, if you're a World War II vet, you are to the top of our list. We're getting you down there in the next trip, followed by the Korean veterans, followed by the Vietnam veterans. But we do have others that, this last time we had a gentleman that was part of Desert Shield. He was diagnosed with cancer, given 6 months to live, so we moved them up to the list too. So that's what the others are. Now, the main reason we're not focusing on that, beyond age and general health type conditions, is there is not a memorial to them yet. So in Washington, D.C., beside the Lincoln Memorial, if you're standing at the Lincoln Memorial, it'll be to your left. They are going to build another national memorial to all those that have served in the more recent conflicts. The name's been changed multiple times. As you know, politics is always a fun thing, so they keep changing the name, they keep changing the design. Ground hasn't been disturbed yet for it, but they supposedly will have this done by the year 2025. So there should be a memorial to our newer war veterans. But you can see we also have a large waiting list. Now, like I said, this was 2019 numbers, and since we couldn't go in 2020, that kept us from getting some of those people there. Some of them have gotten to go on trips yet, but we are always trying to get more. So, here's a statement from Harry Truman that I think best describes us as a country. And that's that our debt, these heroic men and valiant women, and their service to our country can never be repaid. They have earned the undying gratitude America will never forget their sacrifices. And that is true. Whether you believe it as a veteran and you see what's going on around you, we truly owe you a debt that we can never repay. And I know all the people that volunteer at Honor Flight look at things like the World War II Memorial here and this wall of stars. Now, you might say, well, it's kind of neat, all those stars, but what's it mean? Well, each star represents 100 people that have passed away during the conflict, during World War II. And if I recall right, the number is something like 404,000, roughly that 404,000 American soldiers died in World War II. And then I know it's on that little thing, but that's a lot of people that gave up their lives for our country, in addition to the families that gave up their sons, their fathers, their brothers. So that's part of the why we do what we do. Korean War, often known as the Forgotten War. As I said, my father was a Korean War vet, but he would never say he was because he ended up not being in Korea. He got shipped out and he got placed in a base in Africa, Eritrea. So he wasn't in the military. He wasn't in the military. He was supposed to get out of the military. He got delayed. And then a little bit later, after being, quote, told he had to stay in, he got shipped over to Africa. So he doesn't look at himself as a vet because he never touched soil in Korea. But to me, you didn't come home to your wife. You didn't come home to your mom. That is a very special thing to me that you're still able and willing to do that sacrifice. Our Vietnam vets, we've all heard stories about how they weren't treated right. And that has really hit home to me as I've been involved in this organization. I was telling one gentleman about a story of a gentleman that was the only survivor of his platoon. I've had other people tell me all kinds of stories about coming home and how they were treated. So there's there's a lot of things out there that people hold in because they don't think anybody wants to hear or to not they don't want to understand, but that they won't understand. So why waste our time talking about it? But we really need them to open up, to tell their story so the next generations hopefully can realize that war is not a great thing. It's not a glorious thing, but it is a sacrifice that unfortunately a lot of our men and women have had to do, and we should be thankful for them. Now, I know that this wall has a number on here, the 58,307 names, including 8 women. Some are listed as MIA, POW, and others. And the reason I say some is because that number keeps changing. If you're ever down at the wall, you'll notice there's symbols that are on the wall to indicate whether you're a POW. And some of them, they do find the remains, like some of the MIAs, they found a remains, so they change the symbols on it. So that's why we just use the approximate 1,200 there, because that number is always changing. But our one-day trip, we start bright and early, 5 a.m. I can tell you it's a long day for all of us. I don't care how old or how young you are, it's a long day. But we leave usually from the Cranberry area. Can't say this will always be the case, but that's our current place right now is we leave from Cranberry because it's close to the turnpike. And we make sure we visit all these monuments. The Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers, the Iwo Jima Memorial, which is technically the Marine Memorial, Air Force Memorial, Vietnam Veterans Memorial, Korean War Veterans Memorial. The Navy, a lot of times we visit, the Navy Memorial. The reason I say that is it's a little bit closer to the Congress, the Supreme Court, the President's House, all that fun side of the world. And needless to say, a lot of Saturdays, people have nothing better to do but protest. So we get there when we can, but there's times that the Capitol Police will tell us, stay away from that side of town. So we don't go over there. But we typically go to that, and we always go to the World War II Memorial. A lot of times we also hit a different memorial that we don't list here because, again, it depends on traffic and it depends on what's going on. But there is another memorial there we like to hit, which is the Disabled American Veterans Memorial. So we try to get to all those. We usually do get to all those. We have a great cooperation with U.S. Park Police. So a lot of times we get there, and as soon as we pull in, one of the police officers will wave me down and be like, listen, go here next, don't go where you were planning. We send them our schedules so they tell us, what's going on in town to try and make sure we get everywhere we say we're going to get to. But they often will change our schedule around, or, like I said, occasionally, like the Navy Memorial, just due to its location, tell us don't go over that way. So how can you get involved? First and foremost, we want all our vets to be there. So if you are a veteran of those conflicts, please talk to me afterward. I want to make sure you get there, get that chance to go down and see those memorials. If you're not a veteran and you just want to help, we have guardians. Now, the guardians are typically people that walk around with our veterans. Typically, we do 1 to 3, it depends. But we'll have a guardian with 3 walking vets, or if we have a veteran that's in a wheelchair, we're going to push them around in a wheelchair, and you're going to have the guardian will just be the person pushing them around for the day. The role of our guardians is just to make sure you take care of them. If they need something, you help them out and help find directions, whatever we need. We always use volunteers when we start the day, needless to say, trying to get 2 bus loads of people all onto a bus in a timely fashion, get them checked in, we can always use your help there. Same when we come back, trying to get everybody back in the door and say goodbye to them. So we can always use volunteers. And then a lot of times we have people that just want to, they can't do something other than they want to write a letter. So a lot of times we have different schools or something that'll just send us a package of letters of thanks. So we'll hand those out to any of the veterans too. So if that's something you would be interested in doing, just writing thank you letters go a long way. And then, we want to make sure we welcome them. For a lot of veterans, they never received that welcome home. Some received welcome home that was less than enjoyable. And again, one of the things that I learned through doing this, I always had this idea that World War II veterans had this ticker tape parade. They all come home to this great celebration. And I know I'm wrong. One of the stories that a gentleman had told me, he come back to Pittsburgh, middle of the night. Whatever reason, the letter that he sent saying he was coming back never made it to his family. So he got back and nobody's at the train station in Pittsburgh, found a bus. The bus took him about halfway home, but that's all the further it got. He still had like 8 miles to walk to get home. So he's got off the bus, was walking home, sees a car coming the other way with one headlight. He's like, oh, I remember when I wrecked Dad's car, kind of jokingly thinking through his head. Sure enough, it was his dad going to work. So his welcome home was his dad seeing him stop. What are you doing here, basically? Give him a hug and say, well, I'm late for work. Didn't give him a ride home. He still had to walk the rest of the way home. And I said, okay. And then he said, and then I get in, and my mom's like middle of something. She gives me a quick hug and says, okay, well, I got to get this done. And then basically the next day, I went back to work. So it's always neat, but we like to make sure we welcome our veterans home. We have different ways to contact people. And then I'm going to ask, when I walked in, I see a gentleman wearing one of our shirts because he went as a veteran. So I'm going to ask him if he can, if you don't mind coming up, can you share a little bit about your experience on our trip?
Thanks, George. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to go on mission number 10, which left in October of last year. I'm a Vietnam War veteran, and I just want to tell you that if you're a veteran, go, because these people, they just want to thank us. It's their way of thanking us. You know, those of us that are veterans, we don't think we did anything all that great, whether we were drafted or whether we enlisted, volunteered. We went over, we did whatever we did, and it was just part of the deal. We kind of took it as a matter of fact. But the people that didn't serve, a lot of our fellow Americans really appreciate what we did. And this is their way of thanking us. And I had such a wonderful time. I told our guardians, which was Carol Lynn and her daughter, Natalie Dubovit. We've gone out with them since our trip because we made such a good, tight bond with those women. We've gone to a luncheon, and just Tuesday of this week, we went to dinner with them. There were 4 other guys in my Vietnam veterans group. The 5 of us were on that trip in October. And one of our other members, Ed Blank, is going to go in May. He's a Vietnam veteran as well. And I encourage you to go. Yes, we had to get up to that church, the Victory Church, at between 4 and 4:30 a.m., but they had coffee and donuts for us. They had breakfast rolls that you heated in a microwave oven, so we were fed. Right off the bat, they fed us. Put us in a very comfortable bus. I think we left about 4:45 in the morning. The bus had 2 nurses, and the guardians, our escorts, are called guardians. There's a restroom on the bus. There was a hydraulic lift on the bus for veterans who were confined to wheelchairs. They could get those gentlemen on and off the bus. As I said, and as George said, they're nurses, and one of those gentlemen forgot to drink water. There's water at every chair, every seat on the bus, and they're always going up and down the aisles. Anybody need water? They want you to stay hydrated. That gentleman did not stay hydrated, and he got a little bit delirious towards the end of the trip. We stopped, and they called for an ambulance. They took him to a facility, and we continued on our trip. They got in touch with his family, and his family was responsible for coming down and getting that fellow. But one of the things that just blew me away was our first trip was to the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown. And let me back up. One of the things they'll ask you when you fill in your application is, can you walk the length of a football field? And I said to the lady, Maria, I said, yeah, I can do it, but I'll be kind of slow. She said, okay, we have wheelchairs that they call honor chairs. You are an honored guest, believe this. There are honor chairs on the bus, use it. And I said, well, I could do it. No, no, no. If you need it, it's there for you. And so I did. I walked some of the time, but some of the time, Carol Lynn pushed me around, and it's there for you. It's there for you to use. At the Tomb of the Unknown, one thing I will say, these guardians know where every restroom is in Washington, D.C., and they tell you, you know, okay, use the one on the bus if you need it, but when you get to D.C., the first thing they say is, okay, if you need a restroom, here is where it is. And at the Tomb of the Unknown, Carol Lynn said, well, there are 2 handicapped restrooms, but if you can make it down a flight of stairs and back up again, there's at least 10 stalls at the one for ambulatory people. So by the time I got back up, she was waiting for me with the wheelchair, and I happened to be positioned at the end of the line, and directly in front of me is where that whole thing went, where the man inspected the new guy that was changing, the new guard that was coming in, and how they looked very, very closely at the rifle and his uniform and everything before they went on their way. When she pushed me away from that, the sidewalk was lined with young people, elementary school age kids. And every one of them was thanking me and giving me a fist bump. And 2 little girls had handwritten notes that they handed to me. And it's, you know, just thinking about it, I'm getting kind of choked up. But when we got home, I remember saying to Carol Lynn, I said, you know what? This is the welcome we never got when we came home from Vietnam. This made up for all of that. It was a fabulous trip. They don't want you to pay for a damn thing. It won't cost you a dime. Everything is on them. They want to do this for us. So by all means, if you're a veteran, go on this trip.
I think I'm back on. I'm going to play a video in the background, so you can kind of watch it or whatever, but I'll, at the same time, just open it up so that you can ask questions or anything that we can do to help. But this video is just a compilation of trips and things that have gone on, and that's my lovely bride who puts up with me. But,
Hey, George.
yes, sir.
It says honor flight. Now, I know you guys use buses, but people that are further away, they actually take flights.
Yeah, so this started in Dayton, Ohio. A gentleman was a physical therapist, and World War II vets were coming in, and he said to them, hey, you know, they're building that new memorial, or they're opening the World War II memorial in D.C. Are you going to get a chance to go visit it? And everyone said, oh, yeah, I plan to do that. I plan to do that. When they had their appointments the following year, he asked, hey, did you get a chance to go see it? And every one of them said no. So he was a private pilot, and he belonged to a little club, and he brought a bunch of other private pilots to agree to take them down free of charge. So he loaded them all, yeah, I think it was 8 airplanes, 8 small planes, 4 people in a plane, 1 a pilot and 3 others. Took them to DC. That's how it became Honor Flight. We are one of about 5 hubs that take buses just due to timing, but there are 144 different hubs in the nation serving 45 states. So almost everybody else flies, including like Hawaii and Alaska. And Hawaii and Alaska, they make it a week trip because it takes them basically a day and a half each direction. So yeah, we're one of the few that take buses. We're on that border. We debate all the time whether to take buses or to fly. There's a cost difference, but more importantly, when we looked at it, it didn't save us time. We'd still have to be at the airport the same amount of time, wouldn't get home any earlier. So we just felt it was more convenient having a local bus company in charge of everything for us.
Do the airlines give you a special rate or anything like that for honor flight?
So yeah, I'll plug two airlines, which is not necessarily my intention, but Southwest has a program called Lone Eagle program that they work with us. So if you can't make the dates we have, or something going on, they'll take you as an individual down, and then they organize a group down in DC. So you might have 50 people from all over the country that are coming in as individuals, flying into one hub, and then they take care of you there. So Southwest does that. And then American Airlines a lot of times will give us a discount if we rent an entire airplane.
Yeah, when I flew for American, I had a lot of honor flight people on board. So I was wondering if the airline supported that, and evidently they do.
Yeah, so we pay for them, but they give us a deal because you're chartering an entire airplane. For most of them, we're chartering the entire airplane. And one way I'd love to do it, another way I know it's not saving us a ton of time.
Are spouses allowed to come along?
So the general answer to that question is we prefer not.
Okay.
I don't know, trying to turn that down, but I guess I'm standing close to it, so I'm amplifying it. We prefer not for a couple reasons. One, typically your spouse is close to your age, which then makes it harder for them to be that guardian pushing you in a wheelchair if they get tired, and then we need to get somebody else to push them. The other thing is we like them to be there when you get home, fresh and not exhausted from the entire day as well. Now, we have on occasion made exceptions if there's medical reasons or something that a spouse needs to go along, we do that.
Anybody else?
Can I say something else?
Uh-oh.
Another thing they are concerned about, as I mentioned initially about breakfast, food. They feed you. They feed you all day long. When you're in Washington, halfway through the tour, you stop at the FDR Memorial, and Arby's provides box lunches for us. So we had box lunches to eat while we took that little half-hour spell during the middle of the day. And then continuing on our trip, and then on the way home, we stopped in Maryland for dinner, Mission Barbecue, and one of the fellows on our trip was Jewish. The food they were serving was pulled pork, barbecued pork. Well, of course, he couldn't eat pork, but they had chicken for him. So if you're of a different faith and you have dietary concerns, they want to know about that up front when you fill out the application. So yeah, as you can tell, meals are important to me.
Any other questions, guys? Nobody's got any other questions about this? George, you said you had some information.
Yeah.
Where, over on the side table there?
Yeah, I have a bunch of pamphlets over there. You can take home a little bit more information about all the different things, tells you how you can apply. One other thing I did want to mention, when you're watching a video, you saw some pictures, and there's pictures on a stand in front of the World War II Memorial, and some were in front of the Korean, and some in front of the Vietnam Memorial. We all know somebody who has served that has passed away. So we have a program that we use to honor those that have passed before us, called Honoring Yesterday's Heroes. And we take, if you have a photo, any photo of them, we get it developed into an 8x10. We take it down, put it in front of the memorial, and then take a picture so you can see them in front of the memorial. Again, that's another volunteer that was something he thought would be a great way to memorialize those that have gone before us. So that's something, if you are interested in, if you have a family member that you would like to be recognized, is another program we do completely free of charge. And as he said, eating, it's my favorite pastime too, as you can tell. We're blessed. That trip, we mentioned all the stuff in the morning. A relative of Oakmont Bakery heard about us, and he called one day and says, "Hey, can I bring over some things in the morning?" And we're like, "Well, we already have some donuts, but yeah, if you want to bring a little bit over, please do." 12 dozen of donuts, so whatever that is, 144 more donuts on top of what we had, and then some other company come in with pepperoni rolls. So we not only fed 2 busloads of people that morning for breakfast, we fed their church the next day, and that night when they welcome home, they had it all out, and people were eating them forever. And then, since then, the Oakmont Bakery has, on a few occasions, they just show up with a truck full of stuff for us. So there is a lot of community support, too, that I always joke that we get credit for, that we have nothing to do. This is just other members of the community that find out what we're doing, when we're doing it, and they try and show up and make sure they can help us. Yeah, if you have any other information or any other questions, I'll be hanging out for a while. I have brochures over here and some photos of our trip. And then this is a little bit more of the video, but thank you guys very much for your time.
George, thank you very, very much for coming in and talking to us.